Now, the way that the grid lines up with Jensen, Maisano, Stroll, the top three in, with all due deference, unusual surroundings for them because they're not normally that far up the order. Are they going to be able to control the pace, or do we need to look for a Rosenqvist, a Dennis or a Leclerc to come through and do the overtaking and do the winning? Discuss.
I think it's pretty likely.
I think what we're going to have is a lively old race here, because you are going to have people who, like Mikkel Jensen, who's no slouch, don't get me wrong, but he's going to seize the opportunity as best he can here to try and take a victory. But as we saw early on, the clever drivers know where to use the slipstream, and it's on this section of the circuit, isn't it? You get in the draft, tow yourself up into contention, and then make the move going into Les Combes. And I think Monsieur le Président ought to go and find a good place to watch this. They're in trouble to look in 33, which is the motor park car, is Mahavir Raghunathan, and he has put himself to the back of the grid by having whatever drama, and it's a spin coming out of La Source. And he only missed the wall by a semi-crotchet, didn't he? I mean, that was a bit touch and go. Thankfully more going than touching, but that could have been hugely embarrassing. This is how they should line up. It might get a bit jumbled because of Raghunathan at the back of the grid. However, Mikkel Jensen, first F3 pole, winner of last year's ADAC Formula Masters Championship, is on top spot ahead of Maisano, Stroll, Rosenqvist, Dennis, Ferrucci, Boccolacci, Camara, Pommer, Leclerc. That is the top 10. And don't forget, Charles Leclerc's car has had 1 win today and 3 here last year in the hands of Max Verstappen. We've called it the Spa Special. It's got a lot to live up to in this second race of the weekend. George Russell, somebody else that needs to pull something out of the bag, but in fairness to George, he raced well in the first race today.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. But going from P20 is, you're quite right, he's got a lot of work to do, hasn't he? As we see the rest of the grid up there on screen for you. Just wonder whether the first turn is going to be the pinch point that we perhaps anticipated in the first race, and it wasn't. You know, everyone got through there very cleanly and very tidily, but just wonder how much Rosenqvist, Dennis and Ferrucci are going to be really pushing at the very early stages of this. We will see.
I'd still put my money on Felix Rosenqvist because he knows all about Formula 3, he knows all about Spa, and he's an intelligent driver as well. And I think for the first lap he'll do what is necessary in terms of what's enough for the speed, but keeping out of trouble as well. So this is where we find that somebody completely different will lead out of La Source. But let's see, because in a moment they will make their way up onto the grid. It's got to be said that so far today, Dave and I have been spot off in our predictions. So here goes another one. Up to the grid comes Poleman Mikkel Jensen. The Mucker Motorsport team, of course, ran Felix Rosenqvist last year, and Mucker never quite got it hooked up, whether it was for Rosenqvist or Lucas Auer. They always seem to have this slight lack of grunt with the Mercedes engines, and it didn't quite work as they were hoping. But this year, we've seen better pace out of Jensen and also Maximilian Günther, both of them new to Formula 3. So they will slot back into place on the grid. We'll keep an eye to where Mahavir Raghunathan will line up, because he should, after his spin, put himself to the back of the grid. If he doesn't, he might be facing a penalty, but we'll just try and peer into the distance. As soon as the last car is into place, then we will be ready. The marshal, who is based on the inside of the last corner, will stride out with his green flag. That's the indication that everybody is back from the warming up lap. And Raghunathan has taken his grid spot, so this is the start of the story, I think, rather than the end of it. However, everybody is back. Raghunathan, I don't think, should be starting there, but anyway, that's now over to the race director and the stewards, because round 14 of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship is about to get underway. 5 red lights on, 5 lights out. It is blast off, and a good getaway is made by the poleman Mikkel Jensen, who moves across to defend from Brandon Maisano as they head down towards La Source for the first time. Rosenqvist tries to find a gap as well. There's a lock-up lower down the order. Boccolacci sprints up the inside and tries to gain track position. Away from the back goes the delayed Albon and McLeod, and the cars work their way downhill for the first time. Jensen it is then who leads the way, trying to edge clear of the rest of them in this 16-lap race uphill through Raidillon for the first time. You can see how brave some of them are, carrying all that speed, but then running out a little bit wide. Here they come to Les Combes for the first time of asking. Mikkel Jensen it is who leads the way, but he's got Lance Stroll from third on the grid, round the outside, using the toe to good effect. Stroll is ahead. Do they touch? Jake Dennis tries to go round the outside and back, third place as well. Jensen back in front, but he gets forced off the road. Dennis goes up into third place. Brave stuff. But as they work their way down to Brussels for the first time, Jensen leads, Stroll is second, Dennis is third, fourth is Maisano, and Rosenqvist is down to fifth place.
That was a brilliant move by Jake Dennis, and whilst you were describing the other action, I could see him lining that up, and he just remained absolutely committed to that, and Jake Dennis through into P3.
Down through Speaker's Corner they come on towards Pouin for the first time then, and so your race leader is Mikkel Jensen. He briefly lost out to Lance Stroll but fought back going through Le Combe. The other one to watch in this is going to be Antonio Giovinazzi to see what progress he can make from 13th on the grid. But up front, Jensen is trying to build the gap then as they work their way for the first time from Pouin through the Piff Path. Giovinazzi to the outside, Callum Illett further back on the grid in the Red Bull Run car, but Jensen's first lap is impressive. He's trying to build this gap. The danger is that they all tow themselves back onto terms heading up to Le Combe on the next lap of the race.
Well, let's see if that plays out. So Mikkel Jensen then, as the cars funnel through now, thankfully all going through relatively unscathed with no dramas to speak of. On this, the opening lap of the second of the Formula 3 races across this weekend. The big battle going on here is for P4, 5 and 6, isn't it?
Brandon Maisano then up the inside of Felix Rosenqvist, who can see another points haul ebbing away here. He needs to get on with it, doesn't he, as best he can. Alessio Lorandi there taking to the curbs as they work their way up over the timing line. And at the end of lap one then, Mikkel Jensen leads Lance Stroll by 0.6 of a second. Jensen and Stroll first and second is not something we've had to say this year yet. Jake Dennis is third as there. Max Günther goes round the outside in the orange car of a sideways Callum Illett as they come out of La Source. Race order behind the leaders. Third is Dennis, fourth is Maisano, fifth is Rosenqvist, sixth is Ferrucci, seventh is Camara, eighth is Boccolacci, ninth is Menezes, 10th is Pommer, and up into 11th is Giovinazzi. But down to 12th is the championship leader Charles Leclerc, as down the pit lane comes Raghunathan. So Mahavir Raghunathan, after his spin on the green flag lap, comes down the pit road. And does he go to the team? Yes, he does. So he's got further problems, hasn't he? The race leaders, nose to tail. Down they come towards Brussels. And the top two, Jensen and Stroll, could, I reckon, be caught by Jake Dennis before much longer, because they're teeing themselves up now for a battle, aren't they?
Yes, they are, and that will play right into the hands of Jake Dennis, who appears to have perhaps better pace than he did in race one.
Yeah, I mean, race one was effectively dry, but it was on a dampish road, and teams admitted they went the wrong way on setup, and I think Prema was one of them. Didn't get the wing setting right to accommodate what the track conditions were like. But Mikkel Jensen for Muka Motorsport is doing a ripper job up front, isn't he? He's trying to get away from the rest as their Camara fends off Boccolacci, who comes up to the outside at the Piff Path and then realised that wasn't on. I'm still a bit mystified by what's happening to Charles Leclerc, because this is a really disappointing performance thus far. He's only 12th. He's gone backwards compared to his grid position rather than forwards, and he's still left himself with a lot of work to do. He's got Giovinazzi ahead of him, but they're losing chunks of time against the race leader, Mikkel Jensen, who powers his way through Blanchimont now. Lance Stroll runs second, and Rosenqvist, somebody else, you've got to say, a bit disappointing, because from fourth on the grid, he's dropped one spot, and he's not making the progress, as now Jake Dennis comes under attack from Rosenqvist. He has gained fourth place back, so take some of that back, really, from Felix now, because he's gained a place back again, and he is having a go at his teammate. He could argue, though, he should have been further up than this already. Over the line they go. Stroll has just done the fastest lap of the race, so the lead gap is down to 0.4 of a second now.
So just 0.4 of a second. And we could see Rosenqvist lining Jake Dennis up. Diving up the inside there, I think that was Nicholas Pola. And still Felix Rosenqvist on the tail of Jake Dennis. And this is the place to make it work, isn't it?
Yeah. Rosenqvist is in the draft, and he's going to get dragged along, and I think he's close enough, early enough to make the move. We have a look at a replay of the start, but we'll keep an eye to what goes on for third place. Have another look at the way that they go off the line. Jensen makes a good getaway, but I think Rosenqvist got a little bit distracted trying to find the right line through La Source, and that let Jake Dennis have a go on the run down the hill. Running out wide, Boccolacci. That's what happened to Charles Leclerc as well. Look, he ran wide. Lots of air under the front of Boccolacci's car as he bounced back onto the road. So we have had the change for third place, have we not? Felix Rosenqvist is up into third position. And Stroll also has made himself some good progress, as you see, through Santino Ferrucci. Race leaders then come towards us. and Stroll it is, who's put himself into the lead of the race. So we've missed third, we've missed the change for the lead, all up at Les Combes. And that means now that Lance Stroll leads from Mikkel Jensen. Felix Rosenqvist is up to third, ahead of Jake Dennis. While we were watching the replay of the start, it's all kicked off, hasn't it? Out of the piff-paff there goes Giovinazzi. He's got Charles Leclerc behind him. Now Leclerc making some progress here. They are chipping away up the order. They've got to be in the top 10 to score points. But the danger for Leclerc is that Rosenqvist is working his way through to the front, and he's going to take a bigger points haul than Leclerc out of this.
Yeah, so where is Leclerc? He's just one out of the points at the moment, isn't he? Running in P11. So whilst we were watching those replays, 2 critical place changes. And now we see Leclerc there lining up the car ahead of him.
It's Menezes ahead, and it's Giovinazzi behind. In fact, Giovinazzi's just fallen back behind Pommer as well. So Leclerc is making progress, but he's a bit stuck behind Menezes as the leaders go through. Stroll ahead of Jensen, 0.6 of a second is the margin. Rosenqvist ahead of Dennis, 1 second is the margin. Felix Rosenqvist is not out of the game yet, is he? And Drama down at the bus stop. Julio Moreno is one of them. Kang Ling is another. And Tatiana Calderon has decided to take somebody's, it's her own wing that's stuck under the car, and now she's stuck in the middle of the road, and this will be a safety car, won't it? There are 3 of them to try and disentangle here, and this is, I fear, going to be another interruption, or an interruption. So the marshal is there to try and get the wing from underneath the car as Stroll fends off Jensen, but Rosenqvist is right with them as well. So it's a 3-way fight for the race lead now.
Absolutely. So Stroll leading from Jensen and Rosenqvist, but they're all absolutely together. Jake Dennis in P4.
Here's the replay as Ling goes up the inside of Moreno, and there's really nowhere for Tatiana Calderon to go. And Kang Ling came oh so close to having a headache there, didn't he? That oh so nearly tipped over. But you've got to say it was Kang Ling's zealotry that triggered all of that. Uses Moreno as a ramp. That does for the suspension, doesn't it? And that'll rattle his fillings as he lands as well, because that was quite a big impact. And poor old Tatiana Calderon.
Just an innocent.
Yeah, he just can't. We've got nowhere to go. Bang, into the front of Julio Moreno's car. And Kang Ling is going to be reported to the stewards of the meeting for that. So he's dragged the car now to block pit in. So this is going to go down well, isn't it, with the race director?
Safety car.
Yes.
No surprise there.
Partly because pit in is blocked as much as the fact there are crippled cars on the circuit. So we'll have a safety car then, everybody. And that's going to bunch them all up. Oh, goody. Safety cars breed safety cars, don't they? Best lap of the race, Felix Rosenqvist. And the marshals there telling the drivers to pull to one side of the road so they can thread their way through the melee. And there is Kang Ling's car that's limped its way with broken suspension to pit in and then just stopped, basically, yes. I still think back to random Spa moments. One of my highlights was the 24 hours a few years ago where Nicholas Meyer-Melnhof contrived to roll a Lamborghini into the pit lane in the first few hours of the race. That is the ultimate arrival in the pit lane, but to just abandon your broken car at pit in is another one. So Kang Ling is being reported to the stewards of the meeting, and I don't suspect it's to ask how he feels after his airborne antics. Anyway, we are behind the safety car. We have Lance Stroll leading Mikkel Jensen. Third is Felix Rosenqvist, fourth is Jake Dennis, and fifth is Santino Ferrucci. Sixth is Brandon Maisano, seventh is Sergio Sette Camara, eighth is Dorian Boccolacci, ninth is Gustavo Menezes, and 10th is Charles Leclerc, and that is Arjun Maini, who has come into the pit lane to have a new front wing. That is Kang Ling, who wisely is keeping his crash helmet on at the moment in case Tatiana Calderon or indeed Julio Moreno catch up with him, I think, after that. And there is, if you like, the other side of the Muka Motorsport coin in this, because one of the cars has been up at the front. Mikkel Jensen was leading, he's now second, and there is Kang Ling's broken car about to be hoiked out of the way. All the weaving around that goes on is to try and maintain the warmth in the tyres. Giovinazzi, crucially, is still only 13th. He's out of the points.
Well, Leclerc is in the points. Just.
Singular. He's 10th, he gets the point. Yeah, that's it. But Giovinazzi gave himself a kind of double whammy in that first race because he retired after the incident with Rosenqvist and then got this grid penalty anyway. so was hit twice. The safety car stays out. All of these laps count within 35 minutes. What you've got on the screen are the laps counting down, but it's also 35 minutes. Of course, live television slots need to be kept on schedule, so there's a maximum time allowed for F3 European Championship races, and 35 minutes it is. So, Lance Stroll is the race leader. Of course, big contrast from his dramas at Monza, where Lance Stroll was almost Cockney rhyming slang for barrel roll as he got airborne with Antonio Giovinazzi. The officials are still trying to get Ling's car out of the way, and it's proving...
Didn't think that would be a difficult operation, to be honest.
It's proving more problematic than anticipated, this. Julio Moreno picks his way through. Right, up, up, up. And go.
Right. So presumably, once that car is out of the way, then... But of course, it depends where the safety car is on the lap in terms of when the safety car will come in.
And also whether the race director can get that snatch vehicle back to its point any other way than having to trundle down the pit lane in reverse, because that needs to be back at its station.
Yes.
In case of another incident at the bus stop. And you never know, it might happen. Ultimate concentration from the snatch vehicle driver. So, Kangling's car is parked, safety car is in this lap, and we will be good to go. And here it comes. So, the car's out of harm's way. Hold on to your hats, because they've all bunched up.
Felix Rosenqvist ready to blast it, I would suggest.
But his blasting depends on Mikkel Jensen being on his toes to stay with Lance Stroll, and he hasn't. And then he gets sideways and squanders more time as they come up towards the line. And it's going to be Lance Stroll with about 3 lengths of an advantage, I would propose, but second and third are nose to tail as the race gets back underway. Rosenqvist is closer to Jensen than Jensen is to Stroll as they break for La Source. Fourth is Jake Dennis, and a huge, huge lockout there by Kamara, who runs deep into the corner. And everybody scrabbles through, and that's Albon going up the inside.
Whoa.
Leans, I think, on Fittipaldi and elbows his way through. Alex Albon is on a mission as the 3 leaders then break away from Jake Dennis on the run uphill now. But a good restart made by Lance Stroll, who I think is enjoying life at the head of the field. Now, right up behind him is Mikkel Jensen. Third is Rosenqvist. Let's see who's the real mover in the pack this time. Put your money on Rosenqvist. Here he comes. Goes to the outside of Jensen. Jensen levels. Oh, they all make contact, and it's Rosenqvist who comes off worse. Broken suspension up the escape road into the barriers. Felix Rosenqvist is out of the race. Lance Stroll is out of the race. Mikkel Jensen is out of the race. Jake Dennis will take over the lead. The safety car is deployed once again. And that, I'm afraid, was pretty silly driving on the part of 3 people, all going for the same part of road at the same time. And all 3 of them are out of the race. And you can anticipate the stewards will have a good old look at that. We'll get a replay, no doubt. But on the first lap of the restart, you've got to say that even if your place was in jeopardy, there was enough time left in the race to fight back. And drivers were not fully aware, I wouldn't propose there, of their surroundings. Rosenqvist is absolutely furious because that's another crop of points that's gone begging, and he's got a damaged car into the bargain, which may not work so well for race 3 tomorrow. But Jensen and Stroll are out as well, and they have just thrown away their best possible finishes of the season so far.
And they have thrown it away. That was just... I mean, you made the point. That just was ridiculous, wasn't it?
Lack of awareness. It's just... There's a hint of desperation that nobody wants to get overtaken, which I can understand. But the clever drivers will think, I'm going to lose out here, but I can fight back in a lap's time. I know what part of the circuit I'm going to be strong on. Rosenqvist, as I said before the start of the race, knows enough about Formula 3. Now look, where's he expected to go? He's on the outside of the road, and it's Stroll who just moves across. Pincers Jensen. Rosenqvist, the completely innocent party in that. Jensen didn't have a great deal to do because he either braked and still could have been hit, or he steered into Rosenqvist. So there's nothing he can do. It's Lance Stroll who just was determined to block at all costs. And there is the outcome. 3 drivers' races wrecked. They're all under investigation. And Lance Stroll, who was the race leader, as I say, that was a kind of block at any cost. And even if he lost a place, maybe 2, he'd have been able to use the slipstream in a lap's time. and perhaps get the ground back again. There still seems to be, from drivers, this belief that this is just like it is on your PlayStation, where if you have a drama, you can press reset and it's all fine. It's not. This is real life, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Lance Stroll, as you can see from his overalls, is part of the Ferrari Driver Academy. And he's not covering himself in a huge amount of glory this year, is he, I'm afraid? Lance Stroll will be reported to the stewards of the meeting. And you have to say, that's the right call. So, I'll get off my soapbox and we'll go back to the race. Jake Dennis is your new race leader as we're behind the safety car. Santino Ferrucci is now up into second. Brandon Marzano is third. Sergio Sette Camara is fourth. Fifth is Dorian Boccolacci. Sixth is Gustavo Menezes. Seventh is Charles Leclerc. Eighth is Marcus Pommer. Ninth is Max Günther. And 10th is Antonio Giovinazzi. So he's in the points, kind of. Charles Leclerc has benefited as well, but largely because of silly driving again. I'm waiting for the camera to find Jean Todt now and get his facial reaction. So down they come through Bruxelles, and trackside there are crippled Formula 3 cars. And Rosenqvist,
I mean, that car was travelling at such a speed, wasn't it?
I was going to say, look how close he's fetched up to the escape road barriers. You know, that could have been another impact. But look at Stroll, completely oblivious to where everybody else is. And at this point, Rosenqvist, all he can do is put his foot on the brake and pray. He hits the barrier again, so that's 2 impacts he's had. And look how close he gets to the conveyor belt barriers there for a third. Again, it's a good advert for the strength of a Dallara chassis.
Yes, it is.
If nothing else. But it's a race that should have had a different feel to it, you've got to say. So Muka Motorsport have lost a car. Prema has lost 2, because don't forget in all of this that Stroll and Rosenqvist are teammates. I know that in Formula 3 you race for yourself, but one Prema driver has just wiped out another. Right, here endeth the lesson. Let's get back to the good bits, which is that when we go racing once more, it's a really jumbled order, and there's still a lot to play for.
And at least, if there is a least, Prema have a car that's in the lead.
Oh, yes. Yeah, every
Sorry,
cloud.
I'm trying to make light, not light, but...
Yeah, Jake Dennis, you're quite right. Ford Prema Power Team went from 4th to 1st, while Carmageddon took place ahead. 21 is under investigation for a dangerous manoeuvre as well now. That's Alex Albon. Was that his lunge up the inside at La Source, maybe? Could have been. Yeah. That's one of those wrinkle your nose and sort of nod your head kind of maybes. But anyway, the stewards will have a look at it and consider whether it was dangerous or not. And you can see the big gouge out of the earth that Rosenqvist made. Officials making sure that the barrier has stood up to the impact as well, and you test that in a very scientific manner by giving it a good old kick with your trainers. A bit of end plate.
Yes.
There. Now you know why lots of hostelries around Spa are full of bits of racing car, because marshals pick them up and take them where they go for a drink later in the day and leave them there. And as I say, part of Felix Rosenqvist's car there, which is going to possibly find its way onto the wall of another local boozer. We're still behind the safety car here, incidentally. We will go back racing as soon as. We've got 9 laps of 16 to go. We've got just over 15.5 minutes of the race still to run. When we do go back racing, it will be Jake Dennis who leads the way.
Not sure they're altogether happy with those barriers, David.
You might be right, actually.
There's a bit of radio conversation going on there, isn't there? And if there's a problem with that barrier and that's got to be dealt with...
It all takes time, because what you've got to do is send out the circuit staff and their equipment, and they've got to travel around, and so, yeah, fingers crossed they are happy. The fact, yeah, safety car's in this lap. I was going to say, the fact that Marshall is running away back to post is a good sign, and we will go racing at the end of this lap. Felix Rosenqvist there stands and watches. And he watches as Dave Richardson has made the point. His teammate Jake Dennis now in the lead of the race. Santino Ferrucci for Muka benefiting, he's up to second. Brandon Marzano for Prema is third, and Sergio Sette Camara for Motor Park fourth. Charles Leclerc seventh. What can he do from here? And Dave, you've spotted a meatball flag for somebody.
Marcus Pommer. who is receiving that black and orange flag.
Okay. Which means there's a mechanical problem with your car that you may not be aware of. So it could be that, for example, there's some damage to a wing or damaged bodywork that the technical delegate, the scrutineers, want to have a look at. So he may well have to pit at the end of this lap. Right, we've got 14 minutes to go, or 9 laps. And the best lap is a 2:11, so 9 at 2:11 is 18, which is more than 13 minutes and 50 seconds we have now, so it's going to go to time, isn't it? There's Alessio Lorandi, who is currently in 12th place, right behind Raoul Hyman. I hesitate at that, because Hyman started 24th and he's now 11th. I know he's been gifted some of it by other driving, but even so, that's not a bad effort, is it? Racing here for the first time as well. His uncle, Chris Hyman, used to be one of the pace setters in Formula Palmer Audi and then had a spell in British GT. Raoul Hyman coming out of the BRDC F4 Championship, and that's pretty good progress. There's Julio Moreno, who, remember, had his moment at the bus stop, but he's been able to catch back up under this safety car period, which is our second of the race. And we're not done yet. So, I told you we were spot off in our predictions, because virtually the front of the grid has wiped itself out now. But I still think that Charles Leclerc might be able to do something, and a lot of the overtaking has got to be done on the restart, where everybody is tightly bunched. That's your moment before the gaps open up. Leclerc is stuck behind Gustavo Menezes, who of course was a podium finisher, a pole getter here last year. Gustavo here this year hasn't gone as well. No.
Well, Jake Dennis it is that leads from Santino Ferrucci P2, and P3 it is Brandon Maisano. So Jake Dennis now will back them up as best he can.
What's going on behind? Look, there's an enormous gap between the leading... What does that give you? 7? That's Leclerc in 7th place, and Marcus Pommer is having a doze. So everybody behind is ruined. Pommer's come into the pits, he's got the message about the black and orange, but he wasn't aware perhaps there was a restart. So now, up into 8th place goes Max Günther, and he needs his binoculars to see who's ahead of him, because he's absolutely miles back, because Pommer was dawdling. Fabulous. Right, the leading 7 go out of La Source. What a race. There is Marcus Pommer. Yeah, thanks for your help, chap. In he comes, down the pit lane. He's effectively out anyway because of the damage the scrutineers want to look at. So, Jake Dennis leads Santino Ferrucci, and in real terms, it's 7 for the race lead now. And then comes Class B, headed by Max Günther, and Giovinazzi is in that mix, and he's going to be absolutely furious. A challenge is made by Menezes at the inside there, and he goes ahead of Boccolacci. Charles Leclerc not being able to buy into that, but Gustavo Menezes, in fairness, gets himself up into the top 5 now, so he's the mover on this lap. And also you can see, trying to gain ground and succeeding, is Sete Camara in the Motor Park car, because he's put himself up into 3rd place. That'll be his best finish of the year, if he stays there. Charles Leclerc, in the meantime, is looking for a way through, and there is a drive-through penalty for Alex Albon, forcing another car off track. That was the move at La Source that we saw. I think it was Fittipaldi, wasn't it, that he squeezed out? So Alex Albon gets a drive-through.
He was P16. So Albon went with a drive-through penalty for forcing another car off the track.
Martin Chow, apologies, it was that he squeezed rather than Fittipaldi. So Martin Chow it was that went off the circuit in avoidance. But a drive-through penalty for Alex Albon, who was all smiles after race 1. And it's a shame that, because he's made good progress up from the back of the grid in race 2. But hey, trying to enforce driving standards.
Well, yeah.
We'll wait and see what happens to Lance Stroll, who's already booked his appointment with the stewards. There's Charles Leclerc, championship leader then, running in 7th place. But he's not close enough there to have a go at Boccolacci. Menezes has got his second win, though, hasn't he? Because he's gained 1 spot, and he's about to have a go at Brandon Maisano as they come up towards the bus stop. Can't go around the outside. And because they squabble, look what happens straight away. Boccolacci and Leclerc join the party as well. Over the timing line, 9 in the book now. 6/10 between Dennis and Ferrucci for the race lead. Camara 3rd, best showing of the season thus far. Maisano, Menezes, Boccolacci, Leclerc. That's the leading group. And then of those that are still in race 1, effectively, so far back do they feel, Günther is 8th, and Raoul Hyman is up into 9th place. He's gained another 2 places. He's got ahead of Giovinazzi for one thing. And absolutely remarkable drive, this, by Raoul Hyman. Replay of more dramas down at the bus stop. Nabil Jeffrey runs across the curbs, and he takes that Sam McLeod with him. They all survive, and there's more contact, and a huge moment this time coming up towards Lecombe, and that, I'm afraid, is the Carlin car upside down. Menezes, I fear, it skates up the escape road straight away. We go safety car, understandably so. The safety car is going to be out for the third time of asking, and that, again, at a fast part of the circuit, contact as one driver was in the slipstream, another tries to defend. We've got 8 3/4 minutes to go. The safety car is deployed once more, and straight away the marshals and the medical team are there to attend to the situation going up towards Lecombe. But that, as you saw, was a big moment indeed, and it is Gustavo Menezes, I'm afraid, who got airborne, and he is the driver then that the marshals go and deal with as the rest of the field works its way around the remainder of this 10th lap. The car, look, is being propped up onto 2 wheels, so Gustavo Menezes can wriggle out of it. And the medical team there, very quickly indeed. The car is righted. And Gustavo Menezes, one hopes, was already out of it before it was dropped down onto the ground. That's the normal procedure, that they let the driver out. No, it wasn't. Blimey. I'm astonished. Absolutely astonished, because that impact as the car dropped is almost as potentially serious as the one he's just been through. I'm absolutely astounded. Absolutely astonished. I mean, thankfully, he can walk away from it. It's happened. I'm lost for words after all these years. It's happened.
I have never seen you so bereft.
I mean, it's common sense. You don't give the guy another potential back or neck injury by dropping the car on the ground. Oh, yes, you do. Have I entered a parallel universe in this race or something? I mean, I know I didn't go to Monza, and that was pretty leery, but I can't remember a race like it. Let's have a look what happens. He's tucked up behind Brandon Maisano, and there just isn't room for the both of them. And as he clips him, and the air gets underneath, there's one impact, look, against the wall. He skates along upside down. There's a second impact as it comes back down onto the ground. I mean, that's a terrifying situation for the driver. You don't know where you are, what you're going to end up hitting next. Thankfully, it comes to a halt. But then, prop it up on 2 wheels and let him scramble out, please. There'll be British marshals, I'm sure, watching this, thinking, we wouldn't do it like that. And there's a good reason. Thumbs up from... I mean, this bloke's made of steel.
Isn't he?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If ever you want a stuntman for a film, Gustavo is your man, because clearly he's indestructible. Well, the best news of all of this is that he walks away.
Yes. From
what was all round a pretty unpleasant experience. Whether you would say that he was at fault for not lifting or Maisano was at fault for squeezing him, have another look at the replay. But more importantly, Gustavo Menezes is okay. Right, we've got 6 minutes to go. Still, we've got the safety car out. And actually, we should have time to go racing again, because actually, despite the severity of the incident that we've just seen in terms of how it looked, Gustavo's okay. He's out of the car. They can now hoik the car out of the way, and it's on an escape road anyway, so good, let's crack on. And then we'll see what happens next. It's broken the roll hoop off, hasn't it?
Yes.
That's how bad an accident that was. That car you may not see again. If it's done the roll hoop, Bob Bassett, the technical delegate, is going to want to make absolutely sure that that is a safe car. So then, what a race, and we ain't done yet. Gustavo Menezes' Carlin car sits by the side of the road. Race order: Dennis, Ferrucci, Camara, Maisano, Boccolacci and Charles Leclerc in the top 6.
The other thing to consider here is, you know, the way the race dates have panned out. We're only a week away. Only a week away
from the Norris ring.
Well,
the good news is Gustavo Menezes will go to the med centre and make sure that everything is okay. But honestly, I'm absolutely staggered that they left him in the car and dropped it on the ground. You go and ask any British marshal, or indeed people like Paul Trafford, the Toka doctor, for example. I mean, he will tell you that you get the guy out. make sure he's okay. Now the car's got to be hoiked out of the way. Actually,
and of course, it doesn't have a roll hoop that you can hoik it with.
No, of course.
Sorry
no, you're quite right.
Add fuel to what is already a burning fire in you, but...
I hadn't clocked that. You're absolutely right. Yeah, how do you lift a car that's unliftable? You're going to have to do it from the suspension. And that's not exactly robust anymore, is it? Because that's had a whack. Just put it in a plastic bag and get rid of it, will you?
And I fear to say, with less than 4 minutes, I'm not convinced that we are going to see.
And Carlin had 2 repaired cars, incidentally, delivered back from Dallara to the paddock here on Thursday. Blimey. I knew I should have bought shares in Dallara years ago, especially in the spares department. The incident between cars 24 and 4, Brandon Maisano and Gustavo Menezes, is under investigation from the stewards and the Belgian air authorities. So they're going to have a good look at it. But it was a terrifying accident, and as I say, although we're being perhaps a little bit facetious in some of this, the best news of all is that Gustavo Menezes is okay. Blimey. What next? We've still got another race to go. Just wondering whether or not there might be another Saturday night drivers talking to, like there was at Monza. I know the driving standards haven't perhaps been quite like Monza, but Sven Stopper, who is back in charge this weekend, he missed Monza because it clashed with his DTM commitments. He may well want to have a word with the drivers as well. Broken suspension, broken roll hoop. That, I think, is a pretty moribund Dallara. That is an ex-Formula 3 car. Right, we've got less than a lap time left in the race. They're on the last lap, Dave.
And, sorry to say it, it's as I feared, because the sheer, just the time it was going to take to recover that car. So, Jake Dennis then. I think I'm right in saying this will be his 3rd win. Yeah, 2 at Pau, you're quite right. And it was the 3rd race when he had a suspension issue and dropped down the order. People on Twitter agreeing with us and saying, what if Gustavo had a neck or a back injury, he should never drop the car down. So I'm astonished, really am astonished that I've just seen that. So we're on the last lap. What a frustrating way to end the race. But for Jake Dennis, it will be win number 3. For Santino Ferrucci, it will be his best of the year. For Sergio Sette Camara, it will be his best of the year. So there are some positives for drivers to take, but there's also once more, I'm afraid, some negatives. And accidents at Monza are one thing. Spa, as many of you will know, with the high-speed nature of it and its topography, accidents here can be even more terrifying. The good news is that we have not had any serious injuries and the race will be finished. We have confirmation behind the safety car. So 3 safety car periods taking us to the checkered flag. And Jake Dennis hasn't really had to work very hard for his win, in as much as there it was on a plate behind a safety car that never restarted. But Jake will take the points because I know he felt very frustrated about Pau, where he lost out late in the race after what should have been the perfect weekend. And you can read more about the post-race reaction and the drivers' feelings on the FIA Formula 3 Europe website, or indeed autosport.com, because Marcus Simmons of Autosport's been watching this race and his notebook is full. Yes, it is.
Absolutely. He's got a spare, I think, you might need for race 3. But again, there's an awful lot that's happened that's good on track. We have had some good racing, but it's the driving standards that once again, I'm afraid, are going to be etched in people's minds. And that airborne moment for Gustavo Menezes kind of takes you back to Mercedes at Le Mans all those years ago, and more recent cars flipping as well in sports cars. But the good news is that Gustavo Menezes is okay. And the loquacious American, I'm sure, will be able to recount the story with adjectival detail as soon as he's got his heart rate back to normal. So, the race effectively is over because we're on the last lap. You can't overtake behind the safety car. It's a case now of just driving to the checkered flag. And for Jake Dennis, it's win number 3, part of the British Racing Drivers Club Superstars programme, administered by Tim Harvey. And I think Tim will be pretty pleased because Jake last year flattered to deceive a little bit in Formula 3, but now he's showing the faith placed in him by the club and by the Superstars programme. A 3rd win, and of course at a very different type of circuit from Pau. I know that he hasn't really had to, or been able to, work his way into the lead. It was given to him, but a win is a win, and he was up there in that leading gaggle. So He will bring them through to the checkered flag. Santino Ferrucci and Sergio Sette Camara for the podium as well. Best finishes of the season for them. And Alex Albon 16th. But he didn't take his penalty, did he, that he was given? Or did he? Because he had the drive-through given. No, he did make a pit stop, so 16th with the drive-through. Did take it. And so there's the checkered flag. And Jake Dennis is the race winner at Spa in round 14 of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. Santino Ferrucci takes second, third Sergio Sette Camara ahead of Maisano, Boccolacci and Charles Leclerc takes sixth position. And so the drivers will make their way up towards the podium, and the Formula 3 paddock is going to be a rather empty place, I think, for the next hour or two, because most of the drivers will all be in a queue outside the steward's office in the race control building. It was Nils Vitic who was the race director at Monza. It's Sven Stopper, as I say, who is back in charge. He's the regular race director this weekend, and it wouldn't surprise me if Sven didn't organise a discussion with the drivers again this evening, because we live in a world where the circuits are getting safer and the consequences of accidents aren't as serious as they used to be, but they can still be serious, and that's what the drivers seem to ignore. And
that Gustavo Meneses, yeah, that was horrifying to look at. Yeah. I actually think that was much more innocent in the way that the accident happened, David, than the one previous.
Yeah, I think Maisano was trying to defend, and I think in fairness to both, because Gustavo was in the tow, he had that extra bit of speed which he hadn't really factored in. And I don't think that was, yeah, I think you're right, it wasn't as sinister as Lance Stroll's desperate block at any cost kind of incident. You've got the top three here: Sergio Sette Camara ahead of Santino Ferrucci and Jake Dennis as the race winner. And for Jake, it is win number 3 of the season. It's the one good thing to come out of a pretty horrible race for Prema Power Team. And Jake, there he is, arrives at Parc Ferme. He's a happy man. But the drivers, I think, are going to have another talking to. And of course, as we saw pre-race, the president of the FIA himself, Jean Todt, is here. And I can't imagine...